Hey, this is Josh for the Camera Project, and today we're at Softbox Studios in Boonton, New Jersey, reviewing the Genaray PortaBright Bi-Color LED light. And this light is, well, it's this guy right here, not this guy. This guy is not on. This is a monster. I first saw this light over at Photo Plus Expo at the Javits Center in New York City, and I contacted the people over at Genaray who were nice enough to send over the light for us to review. So the Genaray PortaBright Bi-Color light is a COB LED light, and what that means is instead of being a square panel like that, it's a small square, and it looks more like a traditional tungsten light source would look like in terms of the form factor of the light itself, but it's more of a single light source. So I really want to try one of these new lights, and the problem is most of them are a lot more expensive. So when I saw something like this at $339, I really want to try it. So the biggest difference between a light like this and a light like that is that you can modify it. And sure, there are some modifications you could do to that light. It has some built-in barn doors, and there's some kind of janky softboxes that you can use. But a light like this, with a Bowens mount where you can get pretty much any light modifier you want, is fantastic to have. In that you can not only soften it, like you can here with this big softbox, but you can also use it as a hard light and put a reflector on it, put a snoot on it, and get a really defined light source. And we're gonna take a look at what that looks like. The other really cool thing about this light is, unlike most of its competition, it actually has a battery that it comes with. Now the battery, I didn't know if it would be something I would use, but I thought it would be really handy to have in a pinch. And having used this light for the last couple months, I can say that it really is handy to have. I've used it on a few shoots where my lighting is in the middle of a very large room, and to have to run extension cords that people are going to trip over, well, I just didn't want to do it. That whole night, I was able to get 6 interviews out using just the battery, probably 30-40 minutes of interview time. The light was at 100%, and I didn't have to worry about plugging it in at all, and it was great to have that freedom. Now they do say that this battery is only good for around a half hour of runtime at 100%, and I haven't really crunched those numbers to see if that's accurate, but still, it's better than nothing, and it's really nice to have. The one kind of odd thing that I wish they would change about the battery is that the battery itself won't charge if you're plugged in and the battery is in the light. It won't be charging just because the light's plugged in. It actually comes with its own separate charger because it's seemingly a separate power system for the two of them. And I just wish it would, because it would be great to use the battery here and there, and then when you can plug in, know that your battery's charging without having to bring an extra set of charging cables, which you do. Let's talk about form factor on this light. The light itself is fairly light and compact. It comes with a really great soft carrying case that will hold the reflector, the 2 plugs, more on that later, and the light itself. And it's really nice to have this case because it comes with a strap and it protects the light, so you're not worried about throwing it into whatever other bag you're using for your shoot and it getting scratched or damaged. Other form factor things, it has a screen on the back and one dial, which is a dial and button. You can turn this to control either the bicolor light temperature or to control the brightness of the light. If I do have one form factor gripe about this light, I'd say it's the plug. Now, it comes with a plug, and it's smart in that the part that is hanging is not the part that detaches. There is a part that will detach a plug from the light. So they're smart enough to keep the part that is dangling as the part that detaches. So it's not going to pull out, but I just wish that they put a longer cord on there so that the big power brick wasn't floating in the air to weigh down your stand and throw off the balance like that. Just another 6 feet or so would have been safe, and I just wish they would have done it, because why do you want to have to deal with this big hanging power brick or gaff taping it to your light stand? No one wants that. Come on. Now, talking about the bicolor aspect, that was the other huge thing that drew me to this light. The thing about bicolor versus daylight or tungsten-based lights is that, well, you can set it to either or somewhere in between. And in shoots where you're not just in a pristine studio like this and you need to mix with room light, it's really fantastic, whether that's mixing with overhead ceiling light or in the case of an interview next to a large window, you can mix with daylight. It's really nice to have that option without having to worry about how many stops of gels and things like that that you're carrying around with you, and you're just not sure you're gonna nail it until you're doing all this metering and stuff. And it's way quicker just to dial in a knob to 3200 or 4500 or 6000 Kelvin and know that you nailed it. And that's been really fantastic with this light. So I know a lot of you are gonna ask, what is the fan noise like? Because some of the biggest competition for this light, I've seen the biggest complaint about those lights has been the fan noise. And I could say, well, I haven't done anything too scientific. I don't think it's bad at all. I'm sitting maybe 5 feet from the light right now, and yes, I do hear that fan, but I'm wearing a lavalier mic and I'm kind of doubting that you're even hearing it through there. And even if you are, it's certainly something you could get rid of with a little bit of noise reduction. So I don't think the fan noise is a problem, and I'm typically running this light at 100%, which we'll come back to shortly. If for some reason the light was right next to your microphone, maybe it would be a problem, but I really don't think so. I've run a few setups where I've had the boom only a few feet away from this light, and while the boom wasn't pointing at the light itself, it wasn't an issue at all. Didn't notice any noise, didn't even have to do any noise reduction. So I don't think it's a problem here. Another thing you probably really want to know about this light is how bright is it? Does it compete with things like this or even the way more expensive COB light competitors? And I will say, because I've mainly been running this light through this Angular 36-inch parabolic softbox, I would say that it's not quite as bright as I would like it for a key light. Right now I'm at f2.8, ISO 320, and it's just bright enough. But if you're someone who likes to shoot your interviews or your scenes at f8, well, it's not gonna be the light for you, for your key light anyway. It might be a great fill light. But we're gonna do some tests. We're gonna take it out of the softbox because this softbox has 2 layers of diffusion, which is cutting it back at least 2 stops. And we'll see what it looks like maybe with 1 layer of diffusion. We'll see what it looks like through an umbrella, and we'll compare it to a more traditional panel light like this Yongnuo and see how the brightness compares. I haven't done these tests yet, so I'm kind of curious too. So here I am at 10% power on the light at ISO 200, and it's way overexposed. So there you go, that's a similar exposure at 10% power. I brought the light back about 2 or 3 feet though. Okay, so now if I crank it all the way up to 100, you can see what that looks like. All right, so if I just want to use a very direct, harsher light source to get more defined shadows in there, I can do that, and it's much, much brighter. So right now I'm shooting through just the reflector, and I am getting, I'm at f5 now, ISO 200. So let's see what 5.6 looks like. Now I am at 100% output because I wanted to compare this light's 100% output to the Yongnuo's output. This is 100% of the output from the Yongnuo. Now the color temperature difference is because the way a bicolor light works is it's combining the colors. So I was at 3200 on the Genaray, so right now is not really a fair comparison, but I just wanted to see what it looked like with all of the LED lights on. And then if we compare it, I'm gonna take it so I'm only seeing the same bicolor temperature as we were before to get a real true comparison in terms of brightness. 3.2 with the Genaray significantly blown out. Bring it back to f5.6 to get around that same exposure. Okay, so now we've got Justin using the Yongnuo as his key light, and we're actually using the Genaray as the backlight to show what a light and a reflector can do. You can get a cool sort of gradient pattern behind someone, which is something that would be really hard to do with the Yongnuo. So right now we have it just going through the reflector, and in a second we're going to try it in a snoot and see how that looks. Okay, and right now I have the Genaray running basically right next to the wall, and it's in a snoot pointed up kind of right next to the background so we could get this kind of streak light. Now if I turn down the key light just to show you the effect a little bit more, You could do something like that. If you want some really dramatic lighting, let's turn down our key light a bunch, and you could do something like that. And it's something that would be really hard to do without a modifiable light. And that's why I like having something like this. All right, so now I'm running the light through a snoot to get some super dramatic lighting on Justin. And it's something that would be really, really, really hard to do with an LED panel. And I'm sure you could think of a way with barn doors and a bunch of craziness, but it's just so easy with something like this if you want a super dramatic lighting setup like this. So here it is with a honeycomb grid at the end of the snoot, which is really narrowing down that lighting spread even more. All right, so we're finished testing out the light. I should have introduced my friend. This is Justin St. Cyr, fellow videographer and editor.
Hey, what's up?
And now we're gonna check out Boonton, see what the town has to offer, and maybe get some coffee.